Another update from Glenn Greenwald, who is a constitutional lawyer, by the way. I know some people prefer to read the original article, and I'll post a link to it. And it's unfortunate that many people simply don't have the time to do the actual reading themselves. But that's I guess where I come in, and I try to at least get some of this stuff out there. And it's not just me. There are many other bloggers who are being sidelined on YouTube who do the same thing. But here it goes. Article by Glenn Greenwald. Among progressives, Democrats, liberals, Obama supporters, and the like, there seems to be some debate about the extent to which Obama deserves criticism over what he has done thus far in the realm of civil liberties, restoration of constitutional principles, and reversing the severe imbalance between security and civil liberties. Major planks of Obama's 2-year-long campaign, and amongst the most frequent weapons used to criticize the Bush presidency. On that topic, here is the first paragraph of a very rare New York Times article written by David Sanger, summing everything up. President Obama's decisions this week to retain important elements of the Bush-era system for trying terrorism suspects and to block the release of pictures showing abuse of American-held prisoners abroad are the most graphic examples yet of how he has backtracked in substantial, if often nuanced ways, from the approach to national security that he preached as a candidate, and even from his first days in office. This article quotes the harshest Bush supporters as heaping praise on Obama for what has been done in the area of national security, terrorism, and civil liberties. In fact, Obama is now receiving praise from such quarters as the Weekly Standard and the National Review, basically the hotbed of neoconservatives. Can anyone deny that with this article the New York Times was posting today, that what has happened this week alone in the realm of Obama's approach to national security and liberties is not a complete turnaround? So just this week alone, Obama's administration sent a letter to Britain threatening to cut off, this was on Monday, threatening to cut off intelligence sharing if British courts reveal the details of how we tortured British resident Biam Mohammed. On Tuesday, this administration promoted to military commander in Afghanistan, General Stanley McChrystal, who was deeply involved in some of the worst abuses of the Bush era. On Wednesday, it was announced that this administration was reversing itself and would try to conceal photographic evidence showing widespread detainee abuse despite the rulings from 2 separate courts, 4 federal judges unanimously, and that the law compels their disclosure. And on Friday, last but not least, it was unveiled that Obama now tries to preserve a modified system of the Military Commissions Act for trying Guantanamo detainees rather than using the civilian judicial process for doing so. You know, it's not the fault of civil libertarians that Obama did all these things, just this 1 week alone. These are the very policies, along with things like the claimed power to abduct and imprison people indefinitely without charges of any kind, and to use the state secrets privilege to deny torture and spying victims a day in court. That caused such extreme anger and criticism towards the Bush presidency in the first place. What would it say about a person like me, for instance, who spent the last 7 years vehemently criticizing those policies, to suddenly decide that the same policies were perfectly fine or not particularly bothersome when Obama now adopts them? How could that be justified? What should one say about a person who vehemently objected to X when Bush did it, but then suddenly found ways to defend or mitigate X when Obama does it? Just reread the first paragraph from the New York Times articles today. What should a rational person say in response to what this describes? It's absolutely true that there have been some important steps Obama has taken in the right direction that George Bush and John McCain would never have even entertained, including banning interrogation techniques outside of the Army Field Manual, barring secret CIA prisons, and guaranteeing international cross access to all detainees and so on. And he has received praise for all of this. The problem is that it is not actual policy. The problem is that it is amounting to merely rhetoric. As impressive as these first pronunciations were in the beginning, they will be simply symbolic as far as U.S. policy is concerned in the future. Since that first week, Obama has engaged in one action after the next to preserve many of the key prongs and the essential architecture of the Bush-Cheney abuses of executive power and civil liberties. This is a fact. What's the point of closing Guantanamo if you're going to continue keeping people indefinitely anyways in cages with no trials in Bagram? Or if we simply transport a modified version of Guantanamo justice in the form of military tribunals here to the U.S.? How can a president who repeatedly promised vast transparency embrace the most extremist Bush-Cheney secrecy powers to this day? How can a person who campaigned on the vow to end Scooter Libby justice and restore the rule of law take one step after another to shield from judicial scrutiny some of the most serious and brutal and highest level crimes committed during the last 8 years? That is the question that we should all be asking ourselves at this point. I'll post a link to this article. It just goes to show that the deception is vast and deep. Good night.